Welcome back and welcome to another book versus movie. A little bit different today because I'm going to be comparing a trilogy of books to a trilogy of movies, and of course that trilogy is 50 Shades of Grey. When I heard that the third one was coming out, I was like, gonna have to do a book versus movie on this trilogy. So I obviously read the books as a trilogy altogether, and then I saw the first film in the cinema when it first came out, and so what I did was I got the first two films on DVD and Blu-ray from the library, because libraries are great for that sort of thing, and then I went to see the third film in the trilogy yesterday, because it came out yesterday. I'm all about seeing films, soon as possible when they come out, if I can. So I haven't reread the books, but obviously watching the movie kind of jogs my memory of the books. I read the books when they first came out. I read the first book before the second two had been released, and then I bought the second two. I believe the second two were released. Were they released together, or was it the first two that were released together? I can't remember, but I remember getting them from my local W.H. Smith's, picking them up and reading them. I think I had to wait a little bit for either the second two or the last one to come out, and reading them and really enjoying them. However, then when I tried to read Grey, which was obviously the follow-up that came out from Christian's point of view, I didn't get on with that one at all. I didn't finish that one, because I just really, could not get on with it. I'm not sure what was wrong, but yeah, maybe it had been too long since I read the other books and I should have reread them. And then I remember seeing the first film and I was really pleased with the first film. And then obviously I've rewatched them, and I still really enjoyed the first film. I thought it kind of followed the book really well, in most respects. The biggest problem that I have with this trilogy and the difference is obviously a problem that a lot of people will have when their favourite book or a book they enjoyed is made into a film, and that is the issue with the main character. In my head, Anastasia Steele was quite normal looking, kind of not, I don't want to say normal looking, but she was more plain looking. A lot of people have this issue with the BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice because they believe that Elizabeth Bennet is in the book a lot more plain looking and her sister is, real striking beauty. But I felt like, Anna Steele was a lot more like you and me, like an everyday sort of girl, whereas obviously we've got this Hollywood glamour aspect to it, and this Hollywood glamour actress comes along playing this character. And in my head, she was a kind of girl next door type, and obviously Dakota Johnson is beautiful and has flawless skin and beautiful lips and beautiful hair and a very, very, very slim figure, and that is just not the person that I thought of in my head, the way E.L. James described her in the book. And so that's my kind of biggest issue with the difference between the books and the film. But then I believe I said in my Bridget Jones book versus movie, you almost have to separate those things. So you almost have to think of, well, if someone was doing a film of your life, it would be someone Hollywood that would be playing you, and so they would be far more glam than your life actually is. And they would always be wearing clean pajamas, and they would always have a fancy car and a fancy phone and things like that, which it's Hollywood, it's going to be like that. So that's kind of my biggest issue with the differences. As I say, I feel like the first book was portrayed really well in the first film. I think oh, excuse me, just let me take a sip of my drink. I think that the kind of like tension and the romance aspect, I think, came across really well on screen, and I feel like sort of Anna's issues and Christian's issues are portrayed really well. The thing that kind of felt like a bigger issue in the book than in the film was the whole Mrs. Robinson character. And obviously this comes into the second film as well. And I felt that that was more of an issue in the book, and she was more of a character in the book than she was in the film. She appeared sort of briefly in the film, whereas I almost feel a bit like Mia had sort of a bigger part to play in the film than she did in the book. So it was interesting the screen time that characters got. But then some things in a book just don't work well as a script. They're just kind of like, in a film it would be almost like filler time, whereas in a book it's kind of meaningful because we can't see the visual in a book. We have to create it in our own minds. And so that's probably the reason behind the choice of those characters being bigger or smaller roles in the book versus the film. Then obviously I saw the third film yesterday, and I really didn't rate it. I was really bored. I found myself getting really distracted. I think the sexual tension had gone. But then I feel that as the books went on, obviously because Anna and Christian's relationship develops as the books go on, then probably the sexual tension goes as the books go on as well. There's just, the sex scenes can be a bit more graphic in a book than they can on screen because this is being released into mainstream cinema. It's R-rated or 18, whatever it is in the UK, but you've got that kind of, that sexual tension that carries on because there's still, these sex scenes being written in the book. And although there are still sex scenes in the final film, I just feel like, the kind of romantic tension wasn't there. All of a sudden, like, Anna is, a wife, which we know from the second film, so that's not a spoiler. And also these are books, so that's not a spoiler. But yeah, she's a wife, and they almost kind of go into this like husband and wife, let's look at a new house and let's think about whether we're going to have a family or not, which I don't remember in the book the discussion about having children coming up after they got married. Like, surely before you marry someone, if you're somebody who wants to have children, before you make a lifetime commitment to someone and stand up and marry them, you go, oh, by the way, do you want children ever? Whereas in the film, which I'm sure didn't happen in the book because I'm sure I would have noticed it. Maybe it did. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Apologise if I'm wrong. But in the film, they're married and then it's like, oh, did you want children? Like, well, don't marry someone if they don't have the same desires when it comes to family as you. But yeah, I just feel like the romance and the kind of like sexual tension between Christian and Anna had completely gone in the last film, whereas I think it was still there in the last book. And yeah, I did find myself being kind of like bored and turned off. Now, I'm not saying that I loved the third book in the series as much as the first book in the series. Obviously, it goes downhill a little bit as we kind of, the newness of their relationship and the newness of, Christian's way of life kind of like leaves us. But yeah, I really didn't rate the third film. I was really bored, and I went to the loo halfway through and I think I missed the best bit. I came back and something had happened. I was like, oh, which I knew happened obviously because I'd read the book, and then kind of like nothing else happened after that. I do like the fact that there are some flashback scenes in the third film, so you get a bit of a kind of like nostalgic look at the romance, so obviously to try and like up the romance a little bit more. But yeah, the third film kind of fell flat for me. So my overall opinion is that I think the first film is done really well and follows the book really well. The second film is fine, and I like the fact that the second and third film follow on from each other, and the first and second film kind of follow on from each other as well, but apparently they shot the second and third film together, so they like shot it as one long thing, which I think works really well, because obviously you can sit and read the books one after the other. So I think the fact that these kind of flow together so well works well. I think that the sex scenes in the first couple of films are good and kind of like tie in with the sex scenes in the books, but I just don't feel that there was that there at all in the third one. And yeah, overall, I think, yeah, the first one was done really well, and then maybe they should have just left it at the first one or done one film for the entire trilogy, and that's my feeling about those. Yeah, kind of watch the first one, maybe don't bother with the others. That's my opinion. Yeah, so let me know if you are a fan of the books and or the films in the comments, and let me know what you think. Even if you haven't seen the third one, let me know what you think of the job that they did with the first and second films versus the books, and whether you reread them before watching the films as well. I'd be interested to know. So I hope you enjoyed this book versus film. It's a bit of a different one, but yeah, I will be back with another video soon. There are a couple of films coming out of books that I absolutely loved, so you can look forward to some more book versus films soon, and I've got a couple of other videos lined up for you. I've got a book haul lined up and another book review lined up and a bit of a vlog lined up, and I've got a couple more things that I'm going to film very, very soon, so lots of exciting things coming up on the channel. So make sure you are subscribed so that they will drop right into your subscription feed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.